I remember after Dr. King was assassinated, I was demonstrating on campus, and more than one person stopped to say, "What are you demonstrating about? You're going to be playing in the NBA. What's the issue?" And I was just appalled at his ignorance.
When you talk about Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, you're talking about basketball immortality, standing 7 feet 2 inches, 6 championships, 6 MVPs, the most unstoppable shot in NBA history. For nearly 4 decades, he was the league's all-time leading scorer, a record that seemed untouchable. But here's what made Kareem truly legendary. He survived everything: 20 seasons, 3 different decades, from the bruising battles of the 70s to the fast-break showtime of the 80s. Kareem didn't just adapt to basketball's evolution, he dominated through all of it. The skyhook was beautiful, unstoppable, poetry in motion that no defender could touch. But that shot was just the weapon. The real genius was the man behind it. Calm under pressure, cerebral in his approach, and absolutely relentless in his pursuit of perfection. For 2 decades, Kareem turned basketball courts into his personal laboratory. Every possession was a chess match. Every game was a test of will. And while opponents tried everything, double teams, hard fouls, psychological warfare, the skyhook kept coming. The points kept falling. The wins kept piling up. But even a legend faces resistance. Even Kareem had nights where he knew he was staring across at something special. Warriors who wouldn't back down. Forces who matched his intensity. Players who made him reach for that extra gear he rarely needed. These weren't just talented big men, they were gladiators, the kind of competitors who turned every possession into a battle, every series into a war, and every matchup into a test of who wanted it more. Looking back at his legendary career, certain names still make Kareem pause. The ones who brought out his very best. The ones who made the skyhook feel like a necessity, not a luxury. The ones who earned his respect by refusing to be dominated. These are the 7 toughest players Kareem Abdul-Jabbar ever faced. Bill Walton was one of the smartest players Kareem ever faced, and one of the few who never seemed impressed by the man with the skyhook. Bill Walton didn't need a rivalry to make a game personal. Every possession was personal, and when you stepped on the court with him, whether it was a meaningless regular season game or a nationally televised showdown in the Forum, he made sure you knew you were in for something different. Their matchups were rare but intense. Kareem was the polished juggernaut, averaging 27 to 30 points a game across much of the 70s. Walton, meanwhile, was more subtle. He wouldn't drop 40 on you, but he'd rebound, pass, screen, and rotate you into exhaustion. He didn't just play the center position, he redefined it, and Kareem respected that deeply. The moment Walton really etched himself into NBA history came in 1977, when he led the Blazers to their only NBA title, winning Finals MVP, averaging 18.5 points, 19 rebounds, and 5.2 assists per game against Julius Erving's 76ers. He wasn't the league's most explosive center, but he was arguably the most complete. A genius defender, a selfless passer, and a tone setter who could dominate without taking over the scoreboard. Kareem once said he understood how to play team basketball better than anyone. But Walton wasn't just brains and backdoor cuts. He was tough, gritty, unapologetically physical. He banged with Kareem in low-stakes regular season games like it was the finals. And even though they never met in a playoff series, a reality every historian quietly wishes were different, their clashes felt like mental chess matches between 2 basketball philosophers with very different ideologies. Where Kareem was elegance and consistency, Walton was chaos and control. And that contrast made every meeting unforgettable. Off the court, the 2 men shared mutual admiration. They were both deeply intellectual, politically conscious, and outspoken in different ways. But on the court, Walton didn't care who Kareem was. He treated him like he treated everyone else, someone to outthink, outwork, and outlast. Years later, when asked who gave him the hardest time, Kareem didn't go for the obvious names like Wilt or Shaq or Hakeem. He said Bill Walton, because even though Walton's body broke down far too early, the short window where he was healthy was enough to leave a lasting scar. It wasn't about how many battles they had, it was about how memorable they were. Wilt Chamberlain was already a living legend when Kareem Abdul-Jabbar stepped onto an NBA floor in 1969. 2 MVPs, a scoring title that looked untouchable, and a championship ring. Wilt wasn't just a dominant big man, he was basketball's original giant. But even with all his accolades, he wasn't about to hand anything to the league's new phenom from UCLA. If Kareem wanted respect, he'd have to go through the strongest man to ever play the game. Their first official showdown came on October 24th, 1969. Kareem, just 22 years old and still going by Lou Alcindor, recorded 23 points and 20 rebounds. Wilt, 33 at the time, answered with 25 points and 21 boards of his own. From the opening tip, it was clear this wasn't a generational gap, it was a generational collision. That rookie season, Kareem averaged 28.8 points and 14.5 rebounds, won Rookie of the Year, and announced to the league that a new Titan had arrived. But facing Wilt was a rite of passage. Even as his offensive role diminished, Wilt's presence in the paint was mythic. He was still 7 feet 1 inch, 275 pounds, and built like a fortress. You couldn't finesse your way around him. You had to battle him, shoulder to chest, possession after possession. Their most intense playoff meeting came in the 1971 Western Conference Finals. Kareem's Milwaukee Bucks, a 66-win juggernaut, squared off against Wilt's Lakers. And despite Chamberlain's pedigree, Kareem dominated the series, averaging 25.4 points, 17.0 rebounds, and leading Milwaukee to a convincing 4-1 series win. Wilt was older, less mobile, but no one could say he gave an inch. He pushed Kareem every game, forced him to adapt, counter, elevate. But the most crushing battle came the following year, 1972, Western Conference Finals. The Lakers had retooled and re-energized, riding the momentum of a 33-game win streak and led by a sharper, focused Wilt. This time, they swept the Bucks 4-0, and though Kareem put up 33.7 points and 17.5 rebounds per game in the series, it wasn't enough. Wilt didn't outscore him. He didn't have to. He controlled the paint, boxed out relentlessly, and anchored a Laker defense that swallowed up Milwaukee's rhythm. Kareem never sugarcoated it. Wilt made him better. He described Wilt not just as a physical opponent, but as a mental one, someone who understood the psychological warfare of big man basketball. Wilt would jaw, bump, bait you into mistakes, and he didn't just defend. He imposed. He set the standard for what it meant to be a dominant center, and Kareem spent his early career chasing it. By the time Wilt retired in 1973, their duels had already shaped the next era of the NBA. And though their relationship off the court was complicated, marked by rivalry, mutual respect, and some bitterness, on the court, Kareem never denied it. Wilt Chamberlain was the mountain he had to climb. By the mid-1980s, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar had faced every kind of challenge. He'd battled Wilt, outmaneuvered Walton, and dominated a generation. But Hakeem Olajuwon wasn't just a new opponent. He was a new equation. A 7-footer with a guard's footwork, soft hands, relentless energy. He didn't move like a big man. He moved like something basketball hadn't seen before. Their first meeting came on December 19, 1984. Kareem was 37, a 6-time MVP. Hakeem was 22, just weeks into his rookie season. That night, Kareem posted 25 points and 13 rebounds. Hakeem responded with 18 and 9. No fear, no flash, no deference. Just two craftsmen, quietly going to war. They would meet 28 times. Kareem won 19th. Hakeem won 9th. But to Kareem, numbers weren't the point. It wasn't about how many times you won. It was how hard you made him work to win. And in 1986, Hakeem made him work like few ever had. In the Western Conference Finals, the Lakers were loaded. Magic, Worthy, Cooper, Scott. The Rockets, unpolished, young, dangerous. In Game 5, with the series tied 2-2, Hakeem erupted. 30 points on 13 out of 20 shooting. Kareem, still grinding at 39, countered with 26 and 13 boards, but momentum had shifted. Houston won the game, then the series. The old guard had felt the ground move beneath them. Kareem later said, Hakeem had a combination of footwork and instinct that made you respect him immediately. He wasn't just athletic, he was smart, dangerous. That was the essence of Hakeem, elegance without ego. He didn't trash talk, he didn't posture, he just played, with focus, humility, and surgical precision. Where Kareem's skyhook was physics refined, Hakeem's dream shake was chaos controlled. Both were unstoppable. Both were art. But Hakeem didn't earn Kareem's respect just by scoring points. He earned it by demanding Kareem's full attention, every minute, every possession. Because the hardest opponents aren't always the loudest. Sometimes, they're the ones who let their game speak. He didn't look like much. Bald head, scruffy beard, worn-out expression. But the second the ball went up, Moses Malone became a force of nature, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar knew it. Their rivalry was different. It wasn't fueled by trash talk or flashy highlights. It was built on weight, on pain, on two titans battling for real estate in the most brutal place on the court, the paint. Moses was chaos in motion. Unlike Kareem's elegance, that iconic skyhook and feather-soft footwork, Moses played like a man digging for gold in concrete. He carved out space with elbows, shoulders, and raw hunger. You couldn't out-jump him. You couldn't out-muscle him, and you certainly couldn't outwork him. That's what Kareem admired most, and feared. Their clashes began in the late 70s, but it was the early 80s that defined their war. In the 1981 NBA playoffs, Moses and his Houston Rockets stunned the Lakers in a first-round upset. Kareem averaged nearly 27 points, but Moses grabbed rebound after rebound like a man possessed, ending with 17.5 boards per game for the series. That wasn't just hustle, that was domination, and it didn't stop there. In 1983, Moses had moved on to Philadelphia. That season, he wasn't just dominant, he was prophetic. He called foe, predicting the Sixers would sweep every round of the playoffs. He almost did, and in the finals, he met Kareem again. This time, it wasn't a contest. Moses demolished Kareem and the Lakers in a 4-0 sweep. While Kareem still managed 23 points per game, Moses controlled everything else: the pace, the boards, the energy. He pulled down 72 rebounds in 4 games. Kareem, for all his greatness, was left gasping for answers. That 1983 finals wasn't just a loss, it was a shift in power. For the first time in a long time, Kareem looked human. He looked tired. And Moses, he looked like the future, tough, relentless, inevitable. But Kareem never resented Moses. He respected him. Because Moses never tried to humiliate you. He just made you earn every breath. And if you didn't come ready for war, you were already dead. Robert Parish wasn't the loudest. He wasn't the flashiest. He wasn't even the most celebrated Celtic of the 80s. But to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, he was one of the toughest men to ever set foot in the paint. And the respect ran deep. By the time they started clashing regularly, Lakers versus Celtics had become basketball's Cold War, 2 dynasties in a coast-to-coast collision for league supremacy. And right in the middle stood Robert Parish, stoic, unshakable, and absolutely ruthless in the trenches. Parish didn't play with noise. He played with precision. Long limbs, wide shoulders, a high release that made his jumper nearly unblockable. But his greatest weapon? Patience. He didn't chase stats. He didn't bite on fakes. He didn't lose his cool. And that drove opponents mad. In the 1984 NBA Finals, the first real Kareem Parish showdown for the crown, Parish averaged 15.4 points and 7.5 rebounds. But that barely scratched the surface. The series turned into a war of attrition, heat exhaustion, flagrant fouls, bodies flying under the rim. Game 4 is remembered for Kevin McHale's clothesline on Kurt Rambis, but inside the paint, it was Parish who kept hammering away, elbows sharp, screens crushing, every box out a declaration of war. The Lakers lost that series in 7, but Kareem came back in 1985 like a man on fire, 30 points per game, Finals MVP, and redemption. Still, Parish didn't flinch, didn't fade. He just kept coming. Quiet, consistent, crushing. Even in 1987, when both men were past their primes, Kareem at 40, Parish at 33, the battle remained. Kareem dropped 21 a night on 55% shooting. Parish countered with 15 and 6. No trash talk, no theatrics. Just 2 warriors trading blows beneath the spotlight, knowing exactly what the other would do, and still not being able to stop it. But Kareem didn't measure Parish by points or rings. He measured him by durability, by presence, by how sore you were the next morning. Parish played 80 or more games in 13 of his 16 seasons. He became the NBA's all-time leader in games played. He didn't burn bright, he burned forever. Kareem once said, Parish never got enough credit. He made life hell under the basket, and he never needed the spotlight to do it. That's why he made the list, because Robert Parish wasn't a highlight. He was a headache, a grind, a slow, punishing storm that wore you down and never let up. And for Kareem, a man who went toe-to-toe with Wilt, Walton, and Hakeem, that meant something. If anyone was carved from granite, it was Artis Gilmore, 7'2", nearly 240 pounds, wingspan that claimed the lane, and the strength to move mountains, or centers like Kareem. When Kareem entered the league in 1969, Gilmore was ruling the ABA. It wasn't an exaggeration to say he was unstoppable. In his rookie season, he averaged 23 points and an absurd 17 rebounds, leading the Kentucky Colonels to a title. By the time he arrived in the NBA in 1976, Gilmore wasn't just ready, he was terrifying. Their first NBA confrontation triggered a shift. This wasn't finesse, it was trench warfare. The Lakers might have had the glitz, but Gilmore played in the shadows. Hard screens, suffocating defense, and low-post dominance. Kareem thrived on rhythm and reaction. Gilmore offered none. He planted his feet, raised his arms, and dared you to shoot over him. And Kareem had to. Across their careers, Kareem averaged 21.2 points, 7.7 rebounds, and 3.2 assists per game in 41 matchups. Gilmore countered with 16.8 points, 9.3 rebounds, and 2.9 assists. The numbers don't capture the grind. Every shot was earned. every board a battle. In the late 70s and early 80s, their duels were masterclasses in post-play, chess matches with their backs to the basket, no flops, no cheap moves. Gilmore consistently ranked among league leaders in efficiency, defense, and shot protection. In 1981, he led the league in field goal percentage while averaging over 2 blocks a game. Kareem said it best: "You couldn't move him, you couldn't fake him, you couldn't wear him down. Artis just stood there like a damn wall." That wall never fell easily. What made Gilmore unforgettable to Kareem wasn't talent, it was presence. He didn't need highlights or hype. He punished you with his silence. When you walked off court bruised and tired, you'd known he'd spoken volumes with his body. In an era of flash and ego, Gilmore was dignity defined. He wasn't the Hollywood star, he was the foundation. And in Kareem's book, that made him unforgettable among the toughest. Before Bill Walton, before Hakeem, before Artis Gilmore, there was Nate Thurmond. For a rookie, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, then still Lou Alcindor, Thurmond was the ultimate baptism by fire. But then he entered the paint and met Thurmond. 6 feet 11 inches, a 7 foot 2 inch wingspan, arms like steel cables, and a scowl unbroken for 48 minutes. This wasn't defensive effort, it was defensive imposition. Their first game? October 1969. Kareem got his 23 points, but nothing came easy. Thurmond fronted him, blocked him, wore him down, and that defined every duel to follow. Thurmond wasn't just strong, he was smart. Perfect angles, unbothered by fakes. When Kareem moved in, Thurmond met him with sheer mass and unyielding base and dared him to shoot over it. Over 13 overlapping seasons, they faced off 27 times. Kareem often had better stats, but he never breezed past Nate, not once. Thurmond wasn't just a bruiser, he was a force. On October 18, 1974, he dropped the first official quadruple-double in NBA history. 22 points, 14 rebounds, 13 assists, 12 blocks. He wasn't just rim protector, he was the architect of defensive chaos. Kareem put it simply: "I really had to work hard for all my shots." Against Thurmond, every bucket was a battle. Wilt said the same. Russell nodded in agreement. This wasn't groupthink, it was legacy. In an age that prized strength, pain, and presence, Nate Thurmond embodied them all. He didn't need to talk. He just stood there, and that was enough. Skill was part of it, will was the rest. And against Nate Thurmond, it was always both. If you thought Kareem faced some brutal battles, wait until you hear who gave Michael Jordan the toughest time on the court. These weren't just matchups, they were mental wars. Tap here to find out the 6 players MJ himself struggled against, and why even the GOAT had to dig deeper.